Elon Musk reveals secret habit that transforms a millionaire's life after 60 years. David Carter sat motionless in his glass-walled office, the sun dipping behind the jagged skyline of New York City. At 60, the man who once commanded boardrooms and headlines now faced something far more unsettling. A quiet tremor ran through his fingers as they hovered over the gleaming oak desk, surrounded by trophies, flashing screens, and the hum of a world that never stopped moving. They say Elon Musk unlocked a secret habit that shifts everything after 60, something nobody talks about. They whisper it's a method, a hidden key that flips the switch from ruthless power to deep, unexpected peace, the kind of peace that sneaks up and digs under your skin. David wasn't sure if it was true, but as the holiday lights flickered far below, loneliness pressed into him like an ice-cold wave. His empire stretched across continents, but here in this room, the silence roared louder than any crowd. Suddenly, his phone buzzed sharply. A name appeared on the screen. His younger sister, Rachel. The message was simple but heavy. "We need to talk. It's urgent. Please call." The lump in his throat grew, memories crashing like broken glass. Family dinners missed, birthdays ignored, all sacrificed on the altar of ambition. Years blurred, the fights, the apologies never made, the phone calls left unanswered. He felt suddenly exposed, the walls around him cracking. In that moment, a cold knock echoed behind the door. The blood drained as a voice he hadn't heard in years slid through the gap. Marcus Reed, his oldest rival, the man who knew every secret David wished forgotten. The man who held the bone-shattering proof of past sins, ready to tear down everything David had built. The city's noise burst back in, car horns blaring, footsteps pounding, life rushing past the windows. David's jaw clenched, muscles twitching with tension. Should he fight to guard his legacy, or finally step into the messy light of truth? Could he rebuild the bridges he burned? Could he risk everything for family, for soul, for meaning? The clock ticked loudly. The night stretched cold and unyielding. David stared out into the abyss beyond glass towers and neon flashes, caught between the monster he created and the man he might still become. What choice would save him or destroy him forever? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. David stood paralyzed, heart racing, as the voice outside grew louder. Marcus Reed's presence loomed like a dark cloud, a reminder of past mistakes. But no sooner had David gathered the courage to respond than the door swung open with a force that rattled the glass walls. Marcus stepped in, wearing a mask of false casualness, but his eyes were sharp, hunting for weaknesses. "David," he greeted, leaning against the doorframe. "Fancy seeing you here." David's throat was dry. "What do you want, Marcus?" The air thickened, heavy with the unsaid. Just then, his phone buzzed again. But instead of Rachel's name, a cryptic message popped up from an unrecognized number. You have a bigger problem than you realize. A cold chill swept through him. What the hell? Marcus shot a glance at the buzzing phone. Who's that? Before David could respond, the overhead lights flickered ominously, dimming for a brief moment. Panic punched through him. There was an electricity in the air, a crackling tension. David had faced high-stakes deals, hostile takeovers, but nothing prepared him for the dread clawing at his insides now. Let's cut to the chase, shall we? Marcus pushed off the door, closing the distance. You think you're sitting pretty, but the past has a funny way of creeping back. Enough, David snapped, emotions swirling like a storm. He was furious, terrified, and confused. Then a loud thud echoed from the hallway, the sound of something falling. Marcus froze, eyes wide. What was that? The tension erupted as the door burst open again, this time followed by a flurry of footsteps. In rushed two suited men, faces stern. Mr. Carter, we need you to come with us, now. What? Who the hell are you? David shouted, his heart pounding in his chest. The first man turned to Marcus. You, too. You're involved. Confusion filled the room like smoke. What are you talking about? David demanded, his grip tightening on the edge of the desk. The second man spoke up, voice grave. There's been an incident at the bank you both use. Something has surfaced. Transactions not reported. We're looking at serious charges. David felt the world tilt beneath him, legs weakening. Charges? What are you saying? Suddenly, Marcus laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Oh, David, you really didn't know, did you? The scheme you thought you buried? Someone's brought it all to light. And you? Shut up! David shouted, fear suddenly morphing into anger. The past came flooding back like a tsunami. But before he could confront Marcus, another buzz from his phone interrupted. He glanced down. The text from the unknown number had changed. Find Rachel. It's not just about you. In that moment, everything shifted. His empire crumbling, his past exposed. Family entangled in the chaos. David felt the walls closing in, breath quickening. What do you mean? What's happening to Rachel? The men exchanged glances, panic evident. We don't have time. We need to go. But it was too late. A room darkened. The lights flickered, and the sound of sirens blared outside, growing louder and more chaotic. David was caught between the reality of his reckoning and the looming threat to his family. What had he created? What had come home? The weight of the year's neglect suddenly broke over him in waves. As the realization struck, he was left with one haunting thought. What had he truly lost? And would he be able to save Rachel before it was too late? David stared into the abyss, his heart pounding like a thunderous drum. Time stalled, and in that endless moment of reflection, Marcus Reed's voice slithered through David's thoughts, threatening, taunting. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a shadow that cut through the dim light of the office. What do you want, Marcus? David's voice cracked, a mix of anger and regret flooding his words. Marcus stepped inside, that all too familiar smirk plastered on his face. Ho 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 ho. Thought you might want to reminisce about old times, David. Or should I say, old sins? David clenched his fists, trying to shield himself from the rush of memories threatening to drown him. He could smell the danger, feel it creeping up his spine. But before he could respond, Marcus leaned in, whispering, "You're not the only one keeping secrets, are you?" The words hung between them like a noose. David's breath hitched, not out of fear, but sheer disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Marcus pulled out a bundle of documents, waving them like trophies. "Paperwork on that project you thought was buried. The one with the offshore accounts. And guess what? It's not just you who's involved." David's gut twisted. "What do you mean?" The grin faded from Marcus's face, replaced by something darker. "Remember Rachel? Oh, she wasn't just your sister. She's been playing both sides, your loyal sibling and my secret partner." A chill raced down David's spine, freezing him in place. Memories of family dinners, her laughter, her support, all twisted into a harsh reality. "You're lying!" David shouted, panic clawing at his throat. "Am I?" Marcus leaned back, enjoying the chaos he'd unleashed. "I've got proof. You've built a life on lies, David, and she's been at the center of it all. What if she's the one who wanted you to fall?" The walls of his office felt like they were closing in. David's mind spun, a whirlwind of betrayal and guilt. He had sacrificed so much for success, and now even his own family had turned into another scheme. "I can help you," Marcus said coolly, placing the documents on the desk. "But it'll cost you. Let me control the narrative, and I'll keep your dirty past out of the papers. You need me." David's pulse quickened, dread mixing with desperation. The weight of his choices pressed down like a lead blanket. He could feel everything he'd built slipping through his fingers. And just when he thought it could get no worse, the flickering lights overhead exploded, plunging them into darkness. The blast resonated like a bomb, echoing through the building. David's heart raced as panic spread through the office. Sirens screamed outside, piercing the silence. He blinked against the sudden dark, and when the backup lights flickered on, the world shifted sideways. Marcus lay sprawled on the floor, eyes wide, shock etched across his face. A crimson pool began to seep across the polished wood. David stumbled backward, horror flooding his senses. "What just happened?" The door swung open again. Rachel stepped in, breathless, panic in her eyes. "David, I heard the explosion. What's going on?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Confusion mixed with terror. She noticed Marcus, the blood, the chaos. Suddenly, everything he thought he knew began to crumble. The ties that bound his past, his present, and his future were severed in that instant. What was real? Who could he trust? As sirens grew louder, David stood frozen, questions racing through his mind. The truth was spiraling into a darkness he never anticipated. And it was closing in fast. Rachel stepped into the chaos, his sister in shock, pale and wide-eyed. "David, what happened?" Words caught in David's throat. He couldn't swallow the fear gripping him. The sight of Marcus on the floor, his body lifeless, screamed louder than anything he could say. Sirens wailed outside, louder and looming, ready to crash down on their world. "Stay back!" David cried, instinctively edging between Rachel and the body. "You shouldn't be here!" But Rachel didn't move. She was frozen, eyes darting around the room, scanning, absorbing. The weight of the moment pressed like 1,000 bricks. What is going on? Why is he... David remembered, but he didn't want to think. His pulse pounded in his ears, drowning out everything but the brutal reality. It was an accident! Rachel stepped closer. A what? This isn't just an accident. She knelt beside Marcus, reaching for his pulse with trembling fingers. Don't! David shouted. A wave of protectiveness surged through him. You don't want to touch anything! But Rachel's next words cut through him. David, he's not dead. She pulled her hand back, eyes wide, a mix of disbelief and worry. He's barely breathing. In that moment, a crack echoed. The door burst open again, and men in uniforms swarmed in, declaring themselves officers. The chaos enlarged instantly. Everyone freeze, hands up. Wait. David's hands shot into the air. There's been a mistake. Shut it. Get down, one officer yelled, rushing to assess the scene. Rachel stood, trembling, but David pointed at her. Not her. She's my sister. She looked at him, confusion thick in the air. David, what are you talking about? Then, from the back of the crowd, one officer yelled, Who's in charge here? You? He aimed his glare right at David. David's heart raced. Please, we can explain. There's been a situation, but... Just then, the officer who'd been checking on Marcus screamed, Move! And suddenly there was an explosion of noise. The floor shook. The lights flickered again. The sirens outside shrieked louder than ever. What now? Ponto! Someone shouted. From the chaos, a shadow moved. Quick! Darting across the office, unseen. Everyone was too caught up in the frenzy to notice. And then it struck like lightning. A gunshot rang out. It was like a pulse. Time froze. David turned, shock rippling through him, eyes wide, pulse hammering. A figure lunged, tackled an officer. More shouting, confusion, terror erupted. In the heart of the bedlam, Rachel screamed. Get down, the officer shouted. David felt a surge of adrenaline, instincts kicking in. He rushed to pull Rachel close, shielding her from the chaos. Stay down! As if time itself broke in two, the gunman took control. And just then, all the lights failed. Shadow wrapped them in darkness, a cavern of fear. David could only hear desperate breaths, the echoes of panic ringing out as hearts raced. Rachel! But suddenly, her voice pierced through, raw and terrified. David, it's me! And there it appeared, a flicker of light, Rachel's phone illuminating her face just as a chilling revelation burst forth. You don't understand, I'm the one they want. It's me. David's chest tightened. What? Why? What do you mean? The world swirled around him, night draining color from the scene. But Rachel's light shone, revealing an unforgettable glint of something he'd never seen in her eyes. Fear and defiance mixed into one. Secrets, she whispered, breathless. Things I never told you. My alliance, it's not with you. A cold wave crashed over him. The weight of it all truly fell into place, and David's breath caught. Darkness wrapped tight. What was happening? Rachel! What did you do? But before she could answer, a wild roar broke through the disarray. Voices became a chorus. The officers grew frantic. Lights flicked on again, revealing chaos, raining. And David felt a jolt rip through him. You betrayed us, the voice yelled. In that frantic moment of truth, everything he thought he knew spun in a storm. What had she done? What had she become? And how much more was hidden in the shadows? The clock ticked loudly. The tension twisted tight in David's chest. He could hear Marcus breathing on the other side of the door. Time felt frozen, like the city outside, a blur of lights and noise that seemed so far away. "David!" Marcus's voice hissed through the crack. It was a sound filled with triumph and years of pent-up rivalry. "I know you're in there." David clenched his jaw, fighting his urge to reply. He was buried under a mountain of memories and regrets, but now wasn't the time for showing weakness. He took a deep breath, steadying himself for what was next. Just then, his phone buzzed again. A text from Rachel. "Please, David, before it's too late." Panic clawed at him, but the door began to creak open. In walked Marcus, a whirlwind of cold confidence. With a smug grin, he leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "So how does it feel to be cornered?" "Get to the point, Marcus. Why are you really here?" David barely recognized his own voice. It was strained, a shadow of authority he once commanded. Marcus chuckled darkly. "Oh, it's not just about our rivalry. It's about the fatal flaw in your empire, David. And I've got the proof." He pulled out a sleek tablet. The screen lit up with images, documents, emails, everything that could dismantle David's legacy. "Show me!" David stepped forward, heart racing. The humiliation, the disgrace, it would be the end of him. Marcus swiped the screen, revealing something even more staggering. "But first, let's talk about your family. You think I'm just after your business? No. I'm after your secrets, the dirt lurking behind the curtain." "What are you talking about?" David's stomach dropped. "It's all connected. I know about Rachel. I know why she reached out. You're not the only one with skeletons, David." Marcus leaned in, lowering his voice. "You remember Thomas Gray, the investor you backstabbed? His daughter, she's been working at the same firm Rachel's at." "The two of them! David!" Suddenly everything fell silent. David's heart thudded painfully in his chest. "What did you say?" "Rachel is intertwined in this web, David. She has been for some time now." He leaned back, savoring the moment. "And forget the boardroom. This is personal." David's mind raced. He had sacrificed everything for success, but it hadn't been for nothing. He had always believed that his family would understand. The sacrifices were for their future, their lives. But now, he was teetering on the edge of losing it all. Just as the weight of the moment sank in, the lights flickered in the office, and a loud thud echoed outside the door, like a storm crashing in. David turned to the sound, dread pooling in his stomach. A voice broke through the chaos. "David, open up!" His heart seized. It was Rachel, but something was wrong. Her tone held panic. "David, you need to let me in, now!" Tension hung thick in the air as he met Marcus's gaze, eyes sparkling with the thrill of impending disaster. Things were spiraling out of control, and the walls were closing in. With a split-second decision, David slashed through the uncertainty. Would he confront Marcus, or protect Rachel from whatever storm was lurking? He reached for the door, trembling, not knowing what awaited him on the other side. The truth hung like a guillotine, ready to cut everything he held dear. What had he truly lost? What would he have to sacrifice next? The clock ticked loudly. The night stretched cold and unyielding. David stared out into the abyss beyond glass towers and neon flashes, caught between the monster he created and the man he might still become. The door creaked open. David turned sharply, breath hitching. Marcus stepped inside, his expression a mask of calculated calm, lips curling as if he savored the tension. But before either man spoke, a tremor quaked through the world outside. Then came the thunderous crash. Glass rattled in its frame as a distant explosion erupted in a shroud of smoke against the skyline. "What the hell was that?" David whispered, heart racing. Marcus's eyes flickered with unease. "We need to go." Panic clawed at David's chest. "What do you mean, go? This is my office, my—" "Now!" Marcus barked, voice gravelly, urgency clear. "There's no time." He motioned for David to follow. They stumbled toward the door, the air between them charged like a live wire. As they stepped into the corridor, a wave of chaos exploded behind them. Cries erupted, and people scrambled from their offices, trying to grasp the unfolding disaster. "What's happening?" David shouted above the commotion, but Marcus remained silent, his eyes darting. Then, just as they rounded the corner, a figure burst from a side office. It was Rachel, eyes wild, breathless. "David, you have to listen." "Not now," he snapped, irritation bubbling. "I don't have time." But Rachel stepped in closer, fear etched on her face. "You don't understand. It's about the explosion. They're targeting you and me. They know everything." David felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean, everything?" Before she could answer, another shockwave slammed through the building. Lights flickered violently, and dust rained down like confetti of terror. Marcus grabbed Rachel, pulling her closer to avoid debris, but in that moment, an icy grip wrapped around David's heart. "Rachel!" he gasped, realization hitting like ice. "What do you know?" With a wild glance furtively cast in Marcus's direction, she leaned closer. "Mom's not who you think. She hid it for years and—" A deafening crash cut her off. The floor shook violently, and the very walls of the building trembled. Everyone screamed and scrambled, but David stood frozen, heavy with the weight of her words. "What?" But before he could process, Marcus shoved both of them toward the emergency exit. "No time! We have to move!" They barreled down the stairs as smoke snaked through the air, each step a desperate race against fate. The emergency lights flickered without conviction, casting odd shadows that danced with dread. David's mind whirled. His sister was saying something. Something monumental. "Our family. The secret," she gasped, voice strained. "It was about power, David. The company. Everything. It's—" A sudden roar filled the air, drowning her out. David grabbed her arm, forcing eye contact. "What?" Her eyes were wide, with tears, holding back an onslaught of emotions. "You need to know the truth." At that moment, an explosion sounded just above them, shattering glass and sending debris spiraling. Time slowed as David braced himself for impact, the world around him crumbling. In the chaos, he realized the life he knew was being extinguished, and the secrets that bound them were unraveling like threads in an old tapestry. The ground shook as dust filled their lungs. And in the heart of panic, David saw Marcus's expression change. For a split second, there was something else in his eyes. Fear mingled with urgency. A hint of betrayal? What had he not said? And as all the pieces scattered around them in the haze of confusion, one thought pulsed clearly in David's mind. What had been so carefully hidden was about to surface, and it would change everything he thought he knew. The clock ticked loudly. David stared out into the abyss beyond glass towers and neon flashes, caught between the monster he created and the man he might still become. And Marcus Reed stepped in, eyes glinting like cold steel. David clenched his fists, each heartbeat echoing the fear that surged through him. Was this the confrontation he dreaded, or the reckoning he'd hoped for? "David, it's time we had a chat," Marcus said, voice dripping with a smug confidence. Just a few steps inside, he paused, as if savoring the moment. But before David could respond, the room plunged into sudden chaos. A loud crash erupted from outside. Glass shattered and concrete crumbled. Alarms blared. David's heart raced. Marcus, eyes wide, stumbled back, fear flickering across his face. Then came the screams. He darted to the window, peering down below. People were running. Smoke billowed from the street, where fiery wreckage lay scattered like fallen leaves. The scene was apocalyptic, a surreal nightmare unfolding beneath his feet. "Is that—" David struggled to find his voice, breath hitching painfully in his throat. The noise rose around him, drowning out everything but the terror in his chest. Marcus twisted, panic unfolding across his features. "Get down! We need to leave!" But David didn't move. His phone buzzed again, a text lighting up the screen. "David, it's bad. Get to safety now." Rachel's words cut through the chaos, sending chills down his spine. He glanced at Marcus, whose fear shifted into something darker. "You did this," he hissed. "What? Are you insane?" David snapped. But a thread of doubt wove into his thoughts. Was there more to this? Could Marcus's ruthless past hold a sinister connection to this disaster? Suddenly, an explosion echoed through the air like a bone-crushing wave. The window shattered in a cacophony of glass and debris. David ducked instinctively, but Marcus thrust himself toward him, knocking him to the ground. "Stay down!" Marcus shouted, scrambling to shield David. A heavy silence fell, punctured only by the patter of distant sirens and the thudding of his heart in his ears. Then came the sound of footsteps, heavy, purposeful. Not from outside, but inside the building. "David!" a voice thundered. It was Rachel, bursting through the door, sweat slicking her brow, panic radiating from her. "We need to get out. Now!" "It's a trap!" Marcus shouted, but Rachel ignored him, eyes locked onto David. "Listen to me. This isn't just an attack. This is personal." "Personal?" A laugh erupted from Marcus, sharp and cruel. "You think you know what's personal? You have no idea what's coming." Rachel's face blanched. "What do you mean?" David felt the floor tilt beneath him. A flicker of memory ignited. The family secrets, the deals, the darkness he thought long buried. "What did you do?" he whispered, eyes darting between them. In that moment, the world tilted further off its axis. The connection between Marcus and Rachel. Once, nothing but distant shadows, now pulsed with life. Was there a truth fashioned in betrayal that twisted their fates together? But before anyone could answer, the room shook again, this time with more force. David's thoughts tangled, heart pounding furiously as fear clawed at him. Outside, the flames climbed higher, the sirens growing louder. In that moment, everything he thought he knew shattered like glass. And as Marcus's eyes darted between him and Rachel, David realized he was running out of time to find out who the true enemy was. What was the secret that could unravel everything? As smoke curled through the door, mingling with desperation, one question lingered in the air, thick and heavy. Would he survive the truth? David stood frozen, the air thick with chaos. Rachel's gaze bore into him, full of urgency, yet a flicker of something darker lingered in her eyes. "We need to get out, now!" Not without an explanation, he barked, frustration mounting. "Dot, dot, do you want to end up like him?" She gestured wildly at Marcus, who was unnaturally quiet, his face drained of color. But Marcus suddenly stirred. "I didn't plan this. You have to believe me." Another tremor rocked the building. David's heart raced. He knew the stakes had just jumped. "What did you do?" The question slipped from his lips, urgent and edged. "I didn't start it," Marcus shot back, desperation flaring. "I was trying to contain it. This was never supposed to get out of hand." "Contain what?" Rachel interjected, voice shaking. A crack echoed from behind them. The door slammed shut, a silhouette blocking their escape. An armed figure appeared, silhouetted against the flickering emergency lights. The figure stepped forward, revealing a familiar face. "Mom?" David gasped. She stood there, eyes cold, but fear hidden behind a mask of composure. "I didn't want you to be involved in this, David. But now, it's too late." "What are you doing here?" His voice trembled, confusion washing over him. "What's going on?" "Everything you believe is a lie," she said, her tone icy. "Your sister, she's not who you think she is." Rachel's eyes widened, the betrayal slicing through the air. "What are you talking about? I'm your sister." "Not by blood," she shot back, voice steady, revealing the truth like a dagger. David stumbled back, caught between shock and disbelief. "What do you mean, not by blood?" "It doesn't matter," his mother pressed, urgency rising. "What matters is that we're being hunted, and Rachel, she was supposed to be the key to stopping it." "What? Stop what?" Rachel interrupted, voice quaking. "The flare," their mother whispered, eyes darting as another explosion sounded outside. "A project, our family's secret. It's worth billions, but it comes with consequences. And now, they're coming for you." David's world twisted. "I thought you had left that life behind. You said we were safe." "I thought I could protect you, David. But they know your family." "Family?" Rachel burst out. "So I'm just collateral damage? You don't even know me." "I know enough." Their mother's voice rippled with urgency. "You both need to trust me. They'll keep coming. It's not just about the flare anymore. It's about power. And they will stop at nothing." "Who are they?" David shouted, fury rising. But before she could answer, the figure at the door surged into the room. A loud bang resonated, revealing a masked identity, grimy and intent. The moment froze. Everything erupted into chaos. Rachel screamed, pulling David back as their mother lunged at the intruder. The tension snapped like a brittle string. And then came the revelation, just as Rachel reached for David. "Get away from him!" their mother yelled, her voice a mix of terror and fury. Fire erupted in the air. The world blurred. With a thunderous crack of gunfire, everything blurred into chaos. Rachel fell, gasping, clutching her side. "Rachel!" David shouted, horror driving through him as he rushed to her side. Blood seeped onto her shirt, blooming dark against the fabric. But as he knelt down, he heard their mother, voice rising above the backgrounds, clear, lucid, cutting through the din. "You must choose, David. This is your chance. Decide now." The room spiraled, panic filling every crevice of his mind. Time stretched, and in that deafening moment, he realized he was at a crossroads of destiny. Would he save Rachel, or confront the truth of his family's legacy? With smoke curling through the air, he felt the weight of the decision crashing down. And beneath it all, the question loomed. Was Rachel truly innocent? Or had everything they fought for become a twisted web of lies? David knelt there, his heart racing, the blood seeping from Rachel's side, staining the floor, a deep crimson. Panic surged through him. "Rachel, hold on!" "We need to get you help," he shouted, his voice thick with fear. "David," she gasped, eyes fluttering. "You don't understand. It's not just about me." "What are you talking about?" he asked, desperate, trying to hold her steady. The weight of the world crashed down as he looked into her fearful eyes. I'm the one who—" But a sudden shout from their mother cut through the urgency. "Get back!" she yelled, stepping in front of them. Eyes blazing with a mix of terror and determination. "They're here!" The gunman burst through the door, chaos erupting anew. Shots rang out, echoing like thunder. David ducked, grasping Rachel's hand, pulling her closer. Their mother lunged at the man, but he was too quick. She cried out, a sharp, chilling sound, before being thrown against the wall. The impact reverberated through David, and he couldn't move. "Mom!" he shouted, ice slipping into his veins as he caught a glimpse of the gunman's face. Recognition flooded over him. This was someone from their past. Memories flashed, deals, whispered threats, shadows lurking in hallways. The truth he couldn't bear to confront crashed back. "Rachel, I need you to stay with me," David urged, his voice cracking, panic flooding his tone. But Rachel's expression shifted, fear flaring into something else, something akin to defiance. "David," she whispered urgently, "it wasn't just the flare. We're family, but there's more." Suddenly, the gunman turned, eyes narrowed, realizing the moment. "You think this is about family? It's about survival." He raised the weapon, pointing it at Rachel now. "No!" David yelled, pushing Rachel down, shielding her. "Stop!" But before he could react, something unexpected happened. The lights flickered, dimming dangerously. In the heart of the chaotic gloom, a figure stepped out from the shadows, a woman cloaked in darkness. Yet her eyes shone like twin stars. "Step away from them!" she shouted with authority, holding something that glimmered in the low light, a dagger. "You don't want to make this worse." David's heart stopped. The woman's face was obscured, but something in her stance felt unnervingly familiar. Who was she? As if reading his mind, the gunman hesitated. "You? What are you doing here?" "I'm here to put an end to this," she said, voice steady, piercing through the tension. "All of it. You're out of your league, and you know it." The world stood still as they stared at this unexpected savior. Time stretched. Each heartbeat like a siren in the air. Rachel turned to David, confusion swirling in her gaze. "What is happening?" Just then, the woman stepped closer, eyes shifting to David. "You don't realize what's at stake. They've been coming for you for too long. You have to let me help." The gunman faltered, his bravado slipping. "You think you can just walk in and—" "Enough," the woman boomed, and in that moment, the lights surged brighter, illuminating not just the room, but the shadowy truths cloaked around them. David's breath caught in his throat. "Who are you?" Her mouth curled into a slight smile, a flicker of recognition. "I'm your mother's daughter, your sister." The words slammed into him like a freight train. Everything twisted. Rachel, a sister? How could it be? He felt as if he stood at the edge of a cliff, staring down into the abyss where everything he believed shattered into pieces. "Don't listen to her, David," Rachel cried, panic sweeping across her features. The air crackled with the weight of betrayal. What if this was all a trap? Each breath felt heavy. Everything he thought he knew crumbled, the truth shifting under his feet like desert sand. A gunshot rang out, echoing through the chaos, and as the world turned upside down, he realized with dawning horror he didn't know who to trust anymore. The lines between friend and foe blurred, and in that moment of pain and fear, the only certainty left was uncertainty itself. What was the real story? In the heart of chaos, one question burned brighter than the flames. Who was truly in control? And as everything teetered on the brink, would he ever find the answers before it was too late? David knelt there, paralyzed by the chaos. Rachel was bleeding on the floor, and the masked gunman loomed over them. The world felt like it was collapsing, crumbling like the dust swirling in the air. "Get back!" their mother shouted, pushing through the chaos. "You don't know what you're messing with!" "Move!" Rachel gasped, but the gunman took a step closer, gun aimed at David's heart. Do not make this worse." Suddenly, the mystery woman, his sister, stepped forward with her shimmering dagger. "Enough!" she shouted, her voice ringing with authority. "You'll regret this, but if you want to live, you need to put the gun down." The gunman hesitated, confusion flickering across his face. "You think you can intimidate me?" "Let's find out," she challenged, unwavering. In the tense silence that followed, David could hear his own pulse pounding. But as seconds stretched, the air thickened with desperation. Rachel turned her head to David, eyes sparkling with an emotion he couldn't quite read. "David, listen to me." "Not now, Rachel," he shouted, frustration boiling over. "No, it's all connected," she insisted. "Mom's story, the flare, everything. We're part of something bigger. But they want us to turn on each other." The walls closed in, shadows creeping steadily. "Is that true?" David asked his mother, eyes wide with disbelief, searching for answers. "Yes!" she exclaimed, her voice tinged with urgency. "Rachel is part of this. It's not just about her. It's about survival, David." The gunman's face twisted with rage. Enough of this. He raised his weapon higher. The air was charged with tension. Then, another explosion rocked the building. David's mind went blank. Debris fell. Chaos spiraled. "Now!" Rachel yelled, grabbing David and pulling him to the side as glass shattered. They stumbled, barely dodging a gushing storm of chaos. "David, we have to move." But where? Where could they go? Suddenly, another figure burst into the room. A formidable officer in uniform, standing tall, voice steady. "Everyone on the ground! Put down your weapons!" The atmosphere shifted, like the room held its breath. The officer's presence demanded attention, authority radiating around him. The gunman faltered again, panicking. "I'm not going back," he shouted, and in that frantic moment, he turned, fired a shot. Time slowed. David lunged for Rachel, pulling her close, shielding her with his body. The bullet flew past them, ricocheting against the wall with a deafening bang. "Get down!" the officer yelled, rushing forward, taking charge. "You're surrounded!" In the heart of chaos, something snapped. The gunman lowered his weapon slightly, caught between survival and desperation. It was the moment they all waited for. "Enough!" their mother shouted. "Stop this, or we all die!" In a heartbeat, the tension shattered. David moved instinctively. "Drop your weapon," he urged, eyes locking with the gunman's. "It's over! You've lost!" The gunman hesitated one last time. The gun slipped from his fingers, clattering to the floor. With relief flooding him, David breathed. "Rachel, hold on!" The room erupted into movement. Officers swarmed in, securing the scene. David and Rachel collapsed into each other, the weight of what just happened crashing down on them. "Are you all right?" he whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yeah," she said. The worry creased her brow. "But we need to talk about everything." The chaos subsided, but uncertainty lingered. Who could they trust? What lay ahead? David's heart was heavy as he looked at his family. The clock ticked softly in the background, but all he could hear was the unspoken truth weighing down their futures together. "Dot, dot. Let's figure this out," he said softly, determination etched in his voice. He wasn't alone anymore. As the sun rose outside, the skyline transformed into a horizon painted in hope. A new beginning, shrouded in mystery, waiting to unfold. What truly lay ahead for David and Rachel? The answer was just out of reach, twisting in the shadows. But he knew one thing. This was just the beginning. Now for you, dear friends, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next chapter in this unfolding saga. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help others find this adventure. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, they matter. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Only true fans understand the power of being part of this journey. Don't wait even a second longer.